bitch back. I don't got time to show. I ain't waiting long. And I'm still here chilling with your bitch ass. Niggas just be saying whatever in their interviews. Yo, King J, what up? Francis, what up? What up, what up, what up? Niggas be saying the craziest shit in their interviews. All my days straight. How old am I? From this age. 333. You see it? 33. 333. And I'm still here chilling with your bitch at. I'm still counting up dough. Well, you get out of the road and you won't never get your bitch back. I don't got time to show. No, 333, brother. I'm 333, brother. Put these hoes on me like a pretty Tony. Real boy, never been a phony. Pull up smoking pack, you can smell it on me. Stepping out, I'm a long black with a few raps and a few homies. And they don't watch but God love me, I can still feel the demons all on me. And body on my prophecies, buying G like Monopoly. Probably moving cautiously, knowing it ain't no stopping me. Blocking me like you're trying to fit a square in the sauces. Shockingly, I've been profiting, counting this money modestly. Honestly, I'm just trying to see money that's like a lottery. Probably the hottest man is spitting, just thinking logically. Chronically smoking chronic, a hydroponic. Inside of me, everywhere I go, I'll be falling like a pro. I see money on the floor. I'm still here chilling with your bitch at. I'm still counting up dough. I'm still counting up dough. So smoke a bottle, if you do that, I know that you won't ever get your bitch back. I don't got time to show. Yeah, 300 for sure.
All by yourself. DB. It's only me here, bruh. This how it always is. Just me. Can't. Why I gotta be a lollipop, can't? Why I gotta be a lollipop?
If you treat her as wrong, then I leave her all alone. If she hit me on the phone, then you won't ever get your bitch back.
Okay, what do I have? What you mean, what do I have? I don't even know what you mean by that. Get a blow job. I don't know who that is. Eulogy. Oh, these guys got some weird timing. Y'all got some weird shit, Gary. Take it higher than a ceiling up another level. Chasing paper, counting bingy, but I'm dancing with the devil. Feel the pressure, know the tree, put my foot to the pedal. Young nigga, gotta eat, I used to sleep with the metal. That's that Nina 9mm, who dig me like show. And I need them hoes, too pretty bitch from the ghetto metal. Fly fella, learned in the streets, you either go to be a beast. Or you gotta see too many people out here faking, I'm just being unique. I just let the critics talk, I can handle critique. I put my life up in these bars, I can give you a beat. In the bando, slapping, we ain't sleeping a week. Chain smoking on that bag, we just ran through a Z. Hoes naked walking around while I'm counting them G's. There's a life you boy chose, fresh linen, bad hoes. Kept me riding, bending corners, blowing, smoking by the hole. I'm getting money, eating good, I can't go back, bro. I be sliding to that money, I be dreaming about all these. I'm just trying to build something, and I pray it don't crumble. I just do this shit for fun while I'm speeding, nigga, cool. Root them on, make sure you got it good. If they ever come for you, aim it in the shoe. Never let a hater take nothing from you. 'Cause rule number 2 is always get the loot. Rule number 3, always keep it G. Some fools will act tough, then call the police. Rule number 3, always keep it G. Some fools that act tough, then call the police. Rule number 3, always keep it G. Some fools that act tough, then call the police. To the sky, and we never fall. Down on the ground, stay running through it all. Flawless execution in the music, violate every bar. Let them niggas talk shit, I illuminate the dark. Man, this shit's fake, you can't escape who you truly are. When you living at the bottom, but you dream about the stars. You find peace up in us, I'm afraid that you can take it far. Catch me out here riding, bitch, I'm probably smoking out the zip. Higher than the heavens, I'm surrounded on my blessings. All the trials and tribulations, a few times get severed in the money, keep calling, ain't no time for second guessing. Through the trials, I learned lessons like diamonds, depression. So I gain a new perspective. Turn my thoughts to weapons. Though it will full clip just to keep my John Thomas 414 in the building. Hey, I'm from Milwaukee. Gangster. I'm just aiming for perfection. 514 love.
party. Frank, what you talking about, man? Shit, man, chillin'. What up, gang? Ain't nothing, chillin', smoking, vibing. Same old shit, different day. I don't know. You can't even. Oh, there it go right there. I was gonna say, I know you can't even separate that shit. Which one? What y'all niggas on tonight, man? Let's see, what's this one? I don't
July
think I
5th,
seen this.
2017. In Bangkok, a 25-year-old millionaire hears a crash outside his mansion gates. For 3 years, this young man, known only as Alpha 02, has ruled a billion-dollar criminal empire on the dark web. He believes he's untouchable, hidden behind screens and encryption. But in seconds, he'll be tackled, handcuffed because a trap is springing shut around the dark web's most powerful man. Will his empire come crashing down with him? And how did he rise so far and fall so fast? It's the mid-2010s, and the hidden corners of the internet are booming. Thanks to tools that promise anonymity and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, a new underworld economy has exploded online. The infamous Silk Road Marketplace, we talked about it in a previous video, was shut down in 2013, but its demise only inspired a wave of successors on the dark web, each vying for the vacant throne. One of these upstarts was about to outshine all the others. In late 2014, a mysterious figure calling himself Alpha 02 launched a marketplace named Alpha Bay. It started quietly, specializing in stolen credit card data. But Alpha 02 had far bigger ambitions. Soon, Alpha Bay became a one-stop black market for almost anything. Narcotics, hacked personal data, weapons, malware, you name it. The site was slick and user-friendly, like an Amazon for illicit goods. Alpha 02 even built in special features to keep users anonymous. Bitcoin tumblers that laundered transactions, and support for new privacy-focused coins like Monero. Few things were forbidden on AlphaBay. Notably, the site banned any content involving child exploitation, and even forbade selling stolen information from Russian banks or citizens. Perhaps Alpha 02 wanted to avoid provoking Russian authorities, or to pretend he was Russian to mislead investigators. AlphaBay's rise was meteoric. While competitor sites imploded from exit scams, hacks, or police raids, AlphaBay kept growing bigger and richer. By late 2015, it had over 200,000 users and tens of thousands of vendors hawking illegal wares. By 2017, it dwarfed every other illicit market in history, with over 300,000 listings and transactions exceeding $600,000 every single day. It was easily 10 times larger than Silk Road had ever been. Every deal earned Alpha 02 a commission of 2% to 4%. The money poured in, making the faceless admin behind AlphaBay fabulously wealthy. Behind the scenes, Alpha 02 assembled a crew to run his empire. Tech engineers, moderators to resolve disputes, even a public relations manager. He appointed a trusted lieutenant known as DeSnake, to act as Alphabay's public spokesperson on forums and handle day-to-day communications. Meanwhile, the Kingpin himself faded into the background, renaming his account simply Admin, and rarely communicating directly. Alpha 02 believed these layers of secrecy would keep him safe, a ghost in the machine, pulling the strings from the shadows. And for a while, it worked. As Alphabay dominated the dark web, its mastermind remained nothing but a username. But with every Kingpin's rise comes the full attention of international law enforcement. Authorities around the world had taken notice of Alphabay's astounding success and the flood of drugs and crime it facilitated. Who was the powerful figure behind this darknet empire, and how long could he remain untouchable? Despite Alphabay's notorious presence, investigators were essentially chasing a phantom. The entire platform operated on the Tor network, meaning its servers and users were cloaked behind layers of encryption and rerouted traffic. They couldn't simply trace an IP address to find Alpha 02. That information was hidden by design. To the FBI, DEA, and others, it felt like chasing a shadow. Alphabay's servers bounced across anonymous Tor relays, and its cryptocurrency transactions were obscured by mixers and privacy coins. Every investigative lead seemed to hit a wall. Was this criminal mastermind truly invisible? Investigators resorted to old-fashioned legwork. Undercover agents made test buys and managed to bust a few low-level vendors, but nothing led them any closer to Alpha 02. After 2 years of fruitless hunting, some investigators wondered if he was simply untraceable. Then, in December 2016, the case was cracked open by an unlikely breakthrough. One morning, a DEA agent received an anonymous email that made his jaw drop. The sender claimed Alpha 02 had made a fatal mistake in Alphabay's early days. When the site first launched, every new user got a welcome message via email, and buried in the metadata of one such email was the true sender's address. It was an oversight that had been corrected quickly, but not before someone noticed. That someone had saved the email for over 2 years. Now they handed it to law enforcement on a silver platter. The hidden address read, pimppunchalex91, hotmail.com. It seemed almost too good to be true. Could the secretive Alpha 02 really have used an address like that? PimpAlex91 sounded more like a teenager's gamer tag than the head of a sprawling crime empire, but agents weren't about to ignore it. They launched an open-source intelligence blitz, and sure enough, that unusual email led to an old online footprint. On a forgotten French social network, they found a profile for an Alex tied to PimpAlex91. On a tech forum, they discovered an account named Alpha 02 from 2008, where the user had posted computer help advice, signing off with the same Hotmail address and a full name, Alexandre Cazes. It was the eureka moment they had been waiting for. The mysterious Alpha 02 finally had a real name and face. The anonymous tipster's identity has never been revealed. Some suspect it was a rival dark web admin who wanted to eliminate the competition.
No,
Others
that's
think it might have
crazy.
been a former
Sojo,
associate of Casey's
never
with
would I
an
do
axe
that
to
for
grind.
some weed.
Whoever
That's
it
crazy.
was, their one act of betrayal set the downfall of Alphabay into motion. With Kaz's name in hand, agents rapidly pulled more
Oh
threads.
no.
They found a LinkedIn and personal website for an
So
Alexandre
glad I can't
Cazes,
tell you.
a young Canadian tech entrepreneur. He had started a web design business as a teen and looked on paper like a legitimate IT professional. Crucially, they discovered he was living in Bangkok, Thailand, and was engaged to a Thai woman. This matched other clues the team had gathered. The Phantom was emerging from the shadows. Working with Thai authorities, a joint task force began surveilling cases in Bangkok. What they uncovered was astonishing. This 25-year-old Canadian, far from laying low, was living like a rock star in the land of smiles. He owned a palatial home in an upscale gated community and multiple other houses around the city. One unofficially dubbed
Yeah,
the
for
Bachelor
sure it
Pad,
is.
where he entertained girlfriends away from his wife. He drove
Damn,
a
for
Lamborghini
sure it
through the
is.
city, flaunted watches, and even traveled with bodyguards. But every move he made was now being watched. To his neighbors, he was just a wealthy foreign businessman. They had no idea his fortune came from hosting a global bazaar of crime on the dark web. Agents also learned Kazes was active on an online pickup artist forum under the alias Romeo. In posts, he bragged about his wealth and success with women, an arrogant playboy persona. This was a man brimming with confidence, clearly believing he was beyond the reach of law enforcement in Thailand, but all the while the noose was tightening around him. Surveillance teams tracked his every move. They noted his routines. When he woke up, when he went out, when he was likely online managing Alpha Bay. The challenge was catching him red-handed and securing the digital evidence before he could destroy it. In one close call, agents at a hotel lounge saw Kazes stroll in unexpectedly. He didn't notice them, but it was a stark reminder that they had to act fast. After months of preparation, the task force was ready to make its move. His freedom was slipping. But could they catch him before he wiped everything clean? By mid-2017, law enforcement from around the globe had secretly united to take down Alpha Bay and its phantom kingpin. The Americans, Europeans, and Thai authorities formed an alliance dubbed Operation Bayonet. The strategy was multifaceted and daring. Not only would they target Alexandre Kazes himself, but they aimed to dismantle the entire Alpha Bay marketplace in one sweep. And they had an ingenious twist, turning Alpha Bay's demise into bait for a second catch. Meanwhile, European investigators had secretly taken control of another market called Hansa. The plan was cunning. Strike Alpha Bay first and keep its shutdown secret so that its users would flee to Hansa, a site now quietly run by police. After a few weeks of watching criminals flock to this honeypot and incriminate themselves, the agents would shut down Hansa too. It was a 1-2 punch designed to deal a massive blow to the dark web. In Bangkok, the day of reckoning arrived on July 5th, 2017. Early that morning, a team of Royal Thai police officers, joined by FBI and DEA agents, moved into position around Kazes' mansion. They knew the suspect's daily pattern, and that around 8 a.m. he'd be online. To catch him, they needed to get him away from his keyboard with no warning. The plan was audacious. Stage a minor car accident at his gate to lure him outside. A female officer volunteered to be the decoy.
Battery dying.
She got into a gray Toyota Camry and drove toward Kazes' residence on the quiet cul-de-sac. Right in front of his property, she deliberately rammed her sedan into Kazes' front gate. The crash wasn't serious, but it was loud enough to startle the entire neighborhood. Kazes took the bait, hurrying outside with his phone while leaving his computer unlocked upstairs. As he approached the distraught driver, the trap was sprung. A swarm of armed officers appeared from hiding and sprinted toward him. In a split second, Kazes realized what was happening. He turned and bolted back toward his open doorway, desperate to reach the laptop that held all the evidence of his crimes. If he could just hit a kill switch or slam the lid shut, he might encrypt everything and thwart the raid. But he didn't get the chance. Thai police tackled him to the ground just steps from his door. At the same time, another team dashed inside the house. Racing past luxury decor, they found the office where Kazes' laptop sat running. It was logged in, unencrypted, and still connected to Alpha Bay's admin interface, exactly what the agents needed. Within minutes, the dark web's most powerful man was in handcuffs, and his digital empire was at the mercy of law enforcement. Technicians copied data from the live laptop and secured multiple passwords, private keys, and server locations. The arrest had gone as perfectly as anyone could hope. Kazes was whisked away by Thai police, and authorities swiftly began seizing his assets around the world. They froze his bank accounts and cryptocurrency wallets, hauled away his luxury cars, and seized caches of cash, gold, and real estate documents from his properties. The lavish life of Alpha 02 was over. However, the mission wasn't finished. The takedown of Alpha Bay needed to remain secret just a little longer to execute Phase 2. That same day, July 5th, Alpha Bay's site suddenly went dark. Thousands of criminals across the globe panicked as their go-to marketplace vanished without explanation. On dark web forums, users frantically speculated, was it an exit scam or a law enforcement raid? With no answers, paranoia grew. Tens of thousands of Alpha Bay's displaced users migrated to Hansa, not knowing it was under police surveillance. To the dark web community, it seemed like business as usual. One market fell, another rose. In reality, they were marching straight into a trap. For 2 weeks, this deception held. Agents quietly mined Kazis' laptop data, while Dutch police observed Hansa's booming business, collecting mountains of evidence. Then, on July 20th, 2017, the endgame came. Officials finally announced the takedowns of both Alphabay and Hansa in coordinated press releases. It was, they declared, the largest dark web bust in history, a watershed victory that yielded a treasure trove of criminal evidence. The dark web's most infamous market was no more, and its once untouchable boss was behind bars. The kingpin was gone, but Alphabay's fall was just the first explosion. What would rise from the ashes? Alphabay's collapse sent shockwaves through the criminal underground. In the immediate aftermath, chaos reigned. Countless deals were left in limbo, and millions in cryptocurrency were seized. When the truth was revealed, a wave of paranoia swept through the underworld. Many who flocked to Hansa realized they had walked into a trap. Police worldwide used the Hansa data to launch investigations and arrest scores of traffickers who had thought themselves safe. Yet, just as before, the takedown of one giant market created opportunities for others. The appetite for anonymous illegal trade did not disappear. By 2018 and 2019, new marketplaces were on the rise. The most notorious was a Russia-based platform called Hydra, which eventually grew even larger than Alphabay. Hydra became the reigning dark web bazaar, showing how whenever one empire falls, another rises. Hydra itself was finally taken down in 2022 by yet another international sting, proving the game of cat and mouse never ends. In an unexpected twist, the Alphabay saga itself wasn't completely over. In late 2021, the marketplace's name was resurrected on the dark web. A figure calling himself The Snake, allegedly Alpha 02's old second-in-command, relaunched the site and vowed to restore its glory. He boasted stronger security measures to make the new Alphabay more resilient. Whether this really was the original D-Snake or an imposter, the message was clear. The legacy of Alphabay still loomed large, and some criminals were eager to pick up where Kazis left off. It was a bold taunt to law enforcement, signaling that even after Alpha 02's downfall, the dark web's underworld was far from defeated. The rise and fall of Alexandre Kazes is a cautionary tale of greed and hubris on the internet's hidden stage. In just a few years, he went from small-time techie to the king of the dark web, amassing untold wealth. But he flew too close to the sun. His arrogance led to careless mistakes. A forgotten email here, a boastful post there, that ultimately gave him away. When Thai authorities locked Kazes in a cell after his arrest, the reality of his situation must have set in. 1 week later, on July 12, 2017, Alexandre Kazes was found dead in that jail cell, an apparent suicide. He thought he'd built something untouchable. But at 25 years old, the dark web's king had lost everything. Alphabay's king fell, but his downfall lit the fuse for the next era of the dark web. In this shadowy world, empires rise overnight and fall in acts of hubris and betrayal. And as long as demand remains, the dark web's throne will never remain empty. July 5th, 2014. Malé International Airport, Maldives. A Russian hacker scrolls his phone in the departure lounge, 90 minutes from touching down in Moscow and permanent freedom. His laptop holds 1.7 million stolen credit card numbers. His father sits in the Russian parliament. For 9 years, the FSB has shielded him from every arrest warrant, every extradition request. He doesn't notice the 2 sunburned Americans in cargo shorts watching him from across the terminal. They carry no badges, weapons, or legal authority. They've tracked him for 6 days, and this is their final chance. In 60 seconds, they'll either spark an international crisis or watch the most wanted hacker on Earth vanish forever. The problem? No extradition treaty exists between the Maldives and the United States. No court can touch him here. So the Secret Service made a decision. If they can't arrest him legally, they'll kidnap him. How do you steal a man from foreign soil? And what happens when a superpower breaks its own rules? Roman Seleznev built a criminal empire before his 25th birthday. Operating under the alias Track 2, He pioneered a method for breaching point-of-sale systems at restaurants, hotels, and retail chains across America. The technique was elegant in its brutality. Infiltrate a payment processor, install malware that copied card data during legitimate transactions, then harvest the numbers by the thousands while customers swiped their Visas and MasterCards without suspicion. By 2014, Roman had stolen 2.9 million credit card numbers and caused $170 million in verified damages across hundreds of American businesses. His marketplace websites, Track2.name and 2pack.cc, operated as eBay for stolen financial data, selling card dumps to fraudsters on 6 continents who converted those digits into cash, merchandise, and untraceable gift cards. Roman spent his profits on Lamborghinis, chartered yachts, and resort suites that cost more per night than most Americans earn in a month. But his greatest asset was not money. His father, Valery Seleznev, held a seat in the Russian State Duma, the lower house of parliament. In Moscow, that bloodline functioned as body armor. Roman bragged in underground forums that FSB agents monitored his safety. The intelligence officers who should have arrested him instead protected him, a courtesy extended to the children of powerful politicians whose cooperation the Kremlin valued. On Russian soil, Roman operated with total impunity. Every extradition request the United States filed landed in Moscow's trash, returned with bureaucratic explanations that fooled no one. For a decade, American cybercrime investigators could only watch as Roman sold stolen cards in plain sight, taunting law enforcement from behind a screen and a border they could not cross. He operated openly because he understood the fundamental truth of international law. Jurisdiction ends at the frontier. Then Roman got careless. After years of meticulously avoiding any nation with a U.S. extradition treaty, he grew restless. The same arrogance that made him flaunt his crimes made him believe he had mastered every variable. He wanted a vacation worthy of his wealth, somewhere exotic enough to match his self-image as royalty of the digital underworld. He researched countries where American warrants held no power, and selected the Maldives, turquoise water, 5-star resorts, and zero extradition agreement with Washington. Roman booked a private water villa at a luxury resort for $50,000, complete with a personal butler and a deck extending over the Indian Ocean. He saw paradise. He saw immunity. He saw the perfect loophole. What he did not see was the flag his airline reservation triggered in a Secret Service database 8,000 miles away. A routine scan of travel records hit a tripwire. An analyst in Washington stared at his monitor and felt his pulse spike. Roman Seleznev, the ghost they had chased for a decade, had just purchased 2 tickets to Malay. One agent on the distribution list had to search a map to locate the Maldives. Within hours, a conference call connected a dozen federal officials across 3 agencies. The consensus was immediate. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, and it was expiring in 7 days. Roman would vacation, then return to Moscow's protection, probably forever. The problem was the law itself. The Maldives had no extradition treaty with the United States. Any formal request would require diplomatic channels, and diplomatic channels meant notification. The moment Russian intelligence learned their prince was being pursued in a foreign country, they would intervene. Roman would receive a warning, board an early flight, and disappear behind the Kremlin's wall. Standard procedure guaranteed failure. So the agents proposed something with no precedent in federal law enforcement. They would bypass treaties, courts, and paperwork entirely. They would fly to the Maldives as tourists, wait for Roman to check out of his resort, and grab him at the airport before he boarded his flight home. No warrants or extradition hearings, no advance notice to any foreign government. A reverse heist. Instead of stealing valuables from a secure location, they would steal the criminal himself from under his own country's protection. The plan violated every protocol in the federal manual. It could end careers, spark diplomatic warfare, and potentially land the agents themselves in a foreign prison. One official summed up the stakes in a sentence that silenced the conference call: "We cannot win this in a courtroom, so we have to win it on the ground." The mission shifted from investigation to extraction. The trap was designed. Now they had to build it without anyone noticing. How do you kidnap someone whose father can telephone the Kremlin without starting a war? And what legal fiction could possibly cover an operation this brazen? 2 days before Roman finished his vacation, a pair of Secret Service agents landed in Malay on a commercial flight from Singapore. They carried no credentials, no firearms, and no official documentation linking them to the US government. To immigration officers, they appeared to be sunburned tourists arriving for a diving trip, complete with snorkeling gear and hotel reservations. That night, they met the chief of the Maldives Police Service in a back room of a small station near the airport. Ceiling fans rotated slowly overhead as the Americans spread photographs across a wooden table. Screenshots of Roman's marketplace showing card numbers for sale, spreadsheets documenting 2.9 million stolen accounts, damage reports from American businesses bankrupted by fraud. The Maldivian officers had never encountered a criminal of this magnitude. Their typical cases involved petty theft and visa overstays. Roman represented a scale of criminality beyond anything their small island nation had ever processed. The agents made their pitch without euphemism. They needed Maldivian help, but not through extradition. Something else. The something else was a legal fiction elegant enough to survive scrutiny. Since formal extradition was impossible, the Maldives would use its immigration authority to expel Roman as an undesirable alien. No court hearing, no diplomatic notification, just a bureaucratic stamp declaring his visa invalid. Local officers would detain him at the airport for a fabricated immigration violation, then hand him directly to the Americans waiting at a private terminal. On paper, the Maldives would be deporting a misbehaving tourist. In reality, they would be delivering him to a U.S. aircraft. The police chief understood the geometry of the risk. If Russia discovered the arrangement, they would accuse the Maldives of participating in state-sponsored abduction. The tiny island nation, population 400,000, could find itself crushed between two nuclear powers arguing over a hacker most Maldivians had never heard of. But the chief also saw something else in those photographs. A predator who had stolen from thousands of ordinary people across the world and faced no consequences because his father sat in parliament. He agreed, with one absolute condition. If the Russian embassy received any hint of warning, the operation died instantly. Total silence or nothing. The Americans arranged their escape vehicle, a Gulfstream G550 private jet, registered under a medical charter company, parked at Malay's executive terminal. The flight plan listed a patient transfer to a hospital in Asia. The actual cargo would be a handcuffed hacker bound for Guam, 8,000 miles east, the nearest scrap of U.S. territory in the Pacific. Everything depended on speed and silence. Roman would check out of his resort, arrive at the airport, and present his passport at immigration. Officers would flag his documents, escort him to a holding room, and the Americans would take custody before anyone outside the terminal understood what happened. By the time Moscow received a frantic phone call, the Gulf Stream would be over the Indian Ocean, beyond any practical interception. If you are enjoying this story and want more deep dives into the world's most audacious cybercriminals, hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and helps these videos reach people who appreciate stories the mainstream media never covers. The trap was set. The jet was fueled. And then nature intervened with timing that felt almost personal. On the morning of July 5th, monsoon clouds swallowed the horizon. By afternoon, tropical storm winds bent palm trees horizontal and grounded commercial flights across the airport. The Gulfstream's pilots studied weather radar with growing alarm. The small jet weighed a fraction of a commercial airliner, more vulnerable to wind shear and turbulence. A takeoff in these conditions risked catastrophic failure over open ocean. Inside a cramped hotel room near the airport, the agents watched the same radar and calculated the same odds. If the storm delayed their departure by even a few hours, Roman would remain in Maldivian custody long enough for Russia to mobilize a response. One phone call from a diplomat, one official demand to release the prisoner, and the local authorities might lose their nerve entirely. The Maldivians had agreed to help, but they had not agreed to a confrontation with Moscow. Everything the agents had built over 3 days could collapse in a single afternoon. They faced a choice with no good options: wait for calmer skies and risk exposure, or launch into the storm and risk their lives. Roman's flight to Moscow departed that evening. They had to move regardless. But could they get airborne before the Kremlin discovered their operation? And what happens when you try to kidnap a Russian politician's son in the middle of a monsoon? The departure hall at Malay Airport smelled of rain and stale air conditioning. Roman Seleznev strolled toward immigration hand in hand with his girlfriend, wearing flip-flops and the relaxed expression of a man who believed he had outsmarted everyone who mattered. Behind the passport control desk, Maldivian police officers disguised as immigration clerks waited with a preloaded watch list flagging his name. Near the duty-free shop, 2 Americans in Hawaiian shirts pretended to examine souvenir magnets while tracking Roman's movement across the terminal with peripheral vision. Adrenaline flooded their bloodstreams. Years of investigation, thousands of hours of forensic work, had collapsed into this single moment at a counter in an airport most Americans could not locate on a map. Roman handed his Russian passport to the clerk with the casual confidence of a man who had never been denied anything. The officer scanned it. A red flag appeared on his screen, the result of instructions delivered the previous night. The clerk's expression shifted. "Please step aside, sir." 2 uniformed Maldivian policemen materialized from a side corridor and flanked Roman before he could process the request. "Routine security check. Please come with us." Roman's girlfriend tried to follow, her voice rising in confusion. An officer blocked her path. "Ma'am, wait here." Within 15 seconds, Roman was separated from his companion and escorted into a windowless room normally reserved for visa disputes and minor customs violations. The door closed behind him with a click that sounded like a lock engaging on the rest of his life. Roman's composure cracked almost immediately. He demanded explanations in English, then Russian, his voice rising with each repetition. The officers provided nothing substantive, citing only a vague irregularity with his travel documents. Outside the room, the American agents moved into position by the door, exchanging nods with the Maldivian team. Every second now carried weight. Roman glanced at his watch. His flight to Moscow departed in less than an hour. His irritation escalated towards something closer to fear. Then the door burst open and his fear became justified. The agents seized Roman by both arms before he could stand from his chair. "Roman Seleznev, you're coming with us. No Miranda warning, no diplomatic courtesy, and no explanation beyond 6 words." Roman's eyes went wide with recognition that something had gone catastrophically wrong. For a chaotic interval measured in heartbeats, the small room became a blur of limbs and overturned furniture. Roman was 30 years old and strong enough to fight back. Panic multiplied his strength beyond what the agents expected. A metal chair crashed against the wall. A table flipped sideways. Outside, his girlfriend heard the noise and began screaming for help. The Maldivian officers calmly blocked the door and waved away curious travelers. "Immigration matters. Nothing to see. Please continue to your gates." During the struggle, Roman clutched something more valuable than his own freedom. His MacBook Pro laptop, the machine containing his entire criminal infrastructure, encrypted files, server credentials, even transaction records linking him to every card he had ever stolen and every buyer he had ever supplied. As the agents forced his hands behind his back, Roman thrust the laptop toward the open doorway, shouting to his girlfriend in Russian, "Take it." If she could secure the device, the Americans would have suspicion but no proof. An agent lunged and snatched the laptop in midair before it cleared the threshold. He passed it immediately to a Maldivian officer with a single instruction: keep the screen awake. Do not let it sleep. The device was still unlocked. Roman had been using it minutes earlier. If it entered sleep mode, encryption would engage and terabytes of evidence would become inaccessible behind a password only Roman knew. The agents had captured their primary target, but they had also captured something potentially more valuable: proof. What did that laptop contain that made Roman risk everything to keep it away from American hands? Would the evidence survive the 12-hour flight to U.S. territory? Roman emerged from the room in handcuffs, flanked by agents, cursing in Russian with fluency that required no translation. To passing travelers, the scene resembled a routine deportation of a disorderly tourist. The agents moved fast, half dragging their prisoner through a side exit where an unmarked SUV idled in sheets of monsoon rain. Water hammered the windshield as they shoved Roman into the back seat. The lead agent's phone buzzed. A voice on the other end delivered 5 words they had feared since the operation began. The Russians know. Roman's girlfriend had reached the Russian embassy. Phones were ringing between Moscow and Malay. The quiet phase of the operation was over. What remained was a race against diplomacy itself. The agent shouted to the driver. The SUV accelerated onto the tarmac road, wipers slashing uselessly at the downpour. In the back seat, Roman understood where they were heading. A private jet terminal. A one-way flight to American soil. The trap had closed, but the hardest part still waited on the runway. Engines running in the middle of a tropical storm. Blue emergency lights swept across the rain-soaked tarmac as the convoy reached the Gulf Stream. Inside the cockpit, the pilot ran pre-flight checks with trembling hands. Wind gusts exceeded 50 miles per hour. The tower had not yet granted takeoff clearance. Worse, the control tower had just received urgent calls from Maldivian government officials, who had themselves received urgent calls from the Russian Foreign Ministry in Moscow. The phrase illegal rendition was now bouncing between foreign ministries on 3 continents. The tower controllers found themselves paralyzed between conflicting authorities, none of whom they wanted to anger. The Americans could not afford to wait for bureaucracy to resolve itself. The SUV skidded to a halt at the foot of the jet's